Death fears for Cain in early Emmerdale ITVX release as mass tragedy could change everything. An announcement made by Joe Tate, Ned Porteous, has sparked even more problems for Cain Dingle, Jeff Hordley, in Emmerdale. So far this year, Joe has been hellbent on securing the Sugden farmland and Butler's farm. It's part of Kim Tate's, Claire King, plan to own the land that surrounds Home Farm, and Joe is determined to help her build a bigger empire. Through some classic blackmail, Joe managed to force Victoria and Robert Sugden, Isabel Hodgins and Ryan Hawley, to sell their land to him. Getting his hands on Butler's, however, is proving more of a challenge. This is because Cain is Cain, and isn't just going to roll over and give Joe what he wants. He's got an awful lot on his plate right now, but Joe asked for a fight, which means he's got one. In today's episode, Cain found Joe and Vanessa Woodfield, Michelle Hardwick, sitting in his kitchen. He discovered from the duo that a herd of cows on the farm need to be tested for TB, due to one of them showing symptoms. Quietly getting them tested wasn't a possibility. The Animal and Plant Health Agency now know, and another vet from the team was on their way to test the animals. It meant even if the test results came back as negative and the cows were fine, the incident would be recorded and impact the reputation of the seriously struggling farm. Once Joe had left, Vanessa reminded Cain that if any of the tests are positive, the cows will have to be culled. And even if some are left, TB spreads quickly, which means there's a chance the business will lose the entire herd. Cain sighed, and couldn't help but wonder what impact this will have on Butler's farm. He's received constant bad news ever since the start of this year, really. So it was no surprise that Cain wasn't full of optimism as he began the long wait for those all-important test results. As Cain tries desperately to keep the farm afloat, he's also keeping his prostate cancer diagnosis a secret, looking after the garage, his 2 sons, and visiting Moira Dingle, Natalie J. Robb, in prison. If the cows end up having TB, will an exhausted Cain back down and give Joe what's left of the farm? For decades, Cain has been the hard man of the Dales. Calculated, unflinching, often ruthless. But beneath the bravado lies a man who has already endured more loss than most. From the devastating death of his daughter Debbie's mother Charity's heartbreaks, to the tragedy of losing his son Nate's trust, Cain has been slowly chipped away by grief. Now, viewers are beginning to sense that the next blow won't just wound him, it could destroy him. The early ITVX release episodes are drenched in foreboding. A series of subtle yet chilling moments have sparked intense speculation among fans. Cain's uncharacteristic quietness, lingering camera shots on vulnerable villagers, heated confrontations escalating further than usual. It's the kind of storytelling that screams one thing in soapland: disaster is coming. And Cain knows it. In recent scenes, he's been visibly unsettled. While he would never admit to fear, there's a crack in his armor. Those closest to him, Moira especially, have noticed. There's a heaviness in his eyes, a sense that he's anticipating consequences. For a man who has made countless enemies over the years, the idea of retribution is never far away. But this feels different, bigger, uncontrollable. Rumors of a catastrophic event have been swirling among viewers since cryptic teasers hinted at multiple lives hanging in the balance. Could a deadly explosion rip through the village? A fire at the Woolpack? A vehicle crash on the treacherous country roads? Whatever it is, Cain appears to be directly entangled. What makes this storyline particularly gripping is Cain's complicated past. He is no stranger to violence. In fact, he has often been its orchestrator. But what happens when the chaos he's used to managing spirals beyond his control? What if innocent lives are caught in the crossfire of a feud that traces back to him? The emotional weight would be unbearable. Cain's greatest vulnerability has always been his family. Despite his criminal reputation, he would do anything to protect them. And that is precisely why fans fear the worst. If this looming tragedy claims someone close to him, a child, a sibling, even Moira, Cain would never forgive himself. There have already been heart-stopping moments. A dangerous confrontation that almost turned physical. A mechanical fault that looked moments away from catastrophe. Tension so thick it felt suffocating. The show is clearly building towards something seismic. And in true Emmerdale fashion, it won't just be about spectacle. It will be about consequences. If a mass casualty event unfolds, the ripple effects will be monumental. The village is a tight-knit community. When one person suffers, everyone does. But Cain? He carries guilt like a second skin. Even when events aren't directly his fault, he internalizes blame. That psychological burden could push him to a breaking point we've never seen before. Could this be the storyline that finally softens Cain? Or will it send him spiraling back into destructive habits? Some fans believe the tragedy could involve a building collapse linked to a shady deal. Others speculate that escalating tensions with a rival might lead to an accidental chain reaction, a single punch triggering a domino effect. Soap history tells us that when Cain is involved, things rarely end quietly. The brilliance of this arc lies in its unpredictability. Cain has survived so much that viewers are constantly torn between fearing his death and believing he's untouchable. Killing off such a legacy character would be explosive television, but injuring him while taking someone else instead could be even more devastating. Imagine Cain trapped in rubble, fighting for breath, forced to confront the possibility that this is how his story ends. Imagine him reaching for Moira's hand, saying words he's never been able to say before. The emotional payoff would be staggering. Yet the bigger question lingers. Who else won't make it out? A mass tragedy would reshape alliances overnight. Long-standing grudges would either dissolve in grief or intensify with blame. Secrets could be exposed. Relationships could fracture beyond repair. The Dingles, already tested by endless turmoil, might find themselves splintered. And Cain, the family's supposed pillar of strength, could become its most fragile member. There's also the haunting possibility that Cain's survival would feel like punishment rather than relief. If he walks away while others don't, the guilt could consume him. We've seen glimpses of his emotional depth before, particularly during moments involving his children. But this would be different. This would be existential. For viewers watching on ITVX ahead of the main broadcast, the tension is almost unbearable. Social media has erupted with theories, with fans dissecting every glance and line of dialogue. Some are convinced the show is setting up one of its most shocking weeks in years. What makes early Emmerdale so effective right now is its restraint. There's no over-the-top disaster yet, just the creeping sense that something irreversible is about to happen. Cain's unease mirrors the audience's own dread. He has always believed he can fix things, intimidate the threat, control the narrative, but tragedy doesn't negotiate. If the worst happens, Cain will face a choice: retreat further into darkness or finally confront the vulnerability he spent a lifetime hiding. Either path would mark a turning point for one of the soap's most iconic figures. And let's not forget, Emmerdale has form when it comes to mass casualty storylines. Plane crashes, storm disasters, explosions that redefine the village forever. When the show goes big, it commits fully. The stakes are real, and no one is ever entirely safe. That's why these death fears feel so tangible. Because for once, Cain Dingle looks like a man who knows he can't punch his way out of what's coming. Whether he becomes hero, victim, or reluctant survivor, one thing is certain: this impending tragedy will change everything. The emotional fallout alone promises months of gripping drama. And if Cain is left standing in the wreckage, haunted by what he's lost, viewers will witness a transformation unlike anything before. For a character built on toughness, the ultimate test may not be physical survival, but emotional endurance. As the tension builds on ITVX, fans are bracing themselves. In the Dales, calm never lasts. And when the storm hits, Cain Dingle could either be buried by it or emerge forever altered. Either way, Emmerdale is about to remind us that in soap, as in life, no one is invincible, not even Cain.